Welcome to the Sherman Report. Here's Peter Sherman.
Hi again. Short weeks are nice, aren't they? It's Wednesday already, and a big Canadian news day as it happens. Jagmeet Singh has announced his support agreement with the Trudeau Liberals is now cancelled. He used the term torn up. What's remarkable about that is he's casting Trudeau as weak, himself as strong, and he is and his NDP ready to take on the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre for the win. I'll tell you right now, Jagmeet, in your freaking dreams, I'll have a complete report, including video on this, in just a few moments. I also want to tell you about the Brazilian government outlawing X, or Twitter as it was known before. This has remarkable ramifications everywhere else in the world. And when Kamala Harris can say on national television that she agrees with what Brazil has done because social media has too much power, I can just hear the lawyers in the United States counting their money and saying, try it, lady, you have a First Amendment issue on your hands. We have our small businessman contributor, Andy Stinton, on board. Again, he has strong opinions. We often agree, sometimes not. And if you like hearing two people in conversation, and hopefully we're savvy people on current issues, stay right here. Andy joins us in just one moment.
Now, the Sherman Report continues.
Well, he was here when we began this adventure last month, and he's a regular on the Sherman Report. A man with opinions and a sense of humor. There he is, Andy Stinson. And why am I calling you Stinson today?
You? How long have you known me? And you can't say my
I've
name.
known you
What
for
kind of broadcaster
10 or 15 years anyway.
Peter
Andy Stinton.
Shearman.
And you're not at home. You're not at home.
No, that's very absurd. I'm in Costa Rica, and
You're in Costa Rica.
Yep, it's gorgeous here. You
got good quality from Costa Rica. Good to have you aboard as usual.
Can I give a quick tip? Can I give a quick tip?
Of course.
Because I like interrupting you. That's my favorite.
Oh, sure.
Is at home. I've got a beautiful studio. Okay, but if you're on that Zoom call or you're too far down in the frame like you are, and you want to look good, what you do is you get a pot from the kitchen. See, this one's a little rocky, and you put your computer on top of the pot, so it's at eye level.
My computer is a 27-inch iMac. It's not going on a pot.
Okay.
Thank you for the tip, though.
Not a good
Listen,
tip for you.
Let's get into the real stuff. I wanted to start with Canadians gobbling up American news and American content, but I think I'm going to leave it for a second because the big story is the one that I mentioned in the opening, which is Canadian story. No more coalition of the damned, as I would like to call it. The NDP has torn up its voting agreement with the Trudeau Liberals. Andy, can an election be far away?
No, it can't. And it surprised me at the idiocy of the actual average piece of the electorate that's actually thought average Joe who's actually thought that it's Trudeau's fault. They haven't gone after Singh, and Singh needs to be gone after because he's been prodding up that government for what, 2 years now? But everybody's blaming Trudeau.
2.5 years.
Yeah.
Well, it's mutual propping. I mean, he doesn't have a huge caucus. And according to the polls, as recently as yesterday, he was bound to have a lesser caucus next time around, which could be as far as October of 2025. I don't think it's going to go that long. And the reason I don't is one of the things that he himself has said is everything is on the table insofar as votes of non-confidence go. So any issue that can be a confidence motion that he feels is amenable to him, he'll go with. What that, of course, means as well is he's saying if Poilievre puts something on the table as a non-confidence motion that he doesn't happen to agree with, or where he feels that Poilievre could win the day with the help of some other parties, he won't go on that one. So it's going to be a very interesting time.
Yeah, it's a bunch of clowns as far as I'm concerned. Singh is a clown, Poilievre is a clown, and Trudeau is a clown. It's like one great big freaking circus with a bunch of grade 3 name calling. I watched his announcement today. Mr. Singh, if you're trying to get me to take you seriously as a politician, just say that you're giving up this contract. I don't need sound effects and music and him standing there casually with pictures of Trudeau. I'm an intelligent person. I understand what you mean, but you make it sound like an ad for some cheap appliance center.
But Andy, it is an ad. And in fact, it even finishes with a flourish and a vote NDP type of thing at the end. In fact, I'll show it in just a few moments on the program. But
if you can actually show it, I can sneak out and plug my computer in at some point.
Well, I know you've seen it, but there are a bunch of folks who are watching us who haven't. The bottom line is it is a 90-second commercial for today, maybe for tomorrow. After that, he's going to have to buy the time, and the rest of the folks are going to have to buy the time too. Nobody has as big a budget as Poilievre, and Trudeau's going to have to do some fast maneuvering to avoid losing a confidence motion. But I think that people should sit up and take notice of the issues and watch what I don't disagree with your description. People who are doing a bunch of name calling, playing games in a legislature, the House of Commons, that's going to open later this week.
Here's my problem.
I know.
What?
Let's move on to the subject we're going to do.
No, here's my problem. I hate this name calling thing. Poilievre, I would have taken and seriously considered him, except for this stupid name calling of Trudeau. If you don't agree with the guy's politics, go at it. But don't call him stupid names and start acting like a grade 3 clown, because you don't convince me that you should be prime minister that way.
Well, it's an opinion. I have spent 7 years in politics, and I heard plenty of name calling. It goes with the territory. And I'm not telling you that it's the right way to go, but it's not particular to Poilievre. It's particular to politicians. Let's talk for a moment about the American side. We had planned to do this anyway, and I find it kind of interesting. Sutherland House Books did a survey and an interview with the American ambassador to Canada, which is floating around out there. The bottom line is a huge number of Canadians, the ambassador says, and so does the survey, are fixated on American news. They watch American newscasts. They subscribe to American papers. They watch American television programming. Are we that boring?
Yes, we are. Of course we're boring. I came from England, right? And the one thing I wanted...
I could never tell that.
No, it's seriously, you might, right, all right. The problem with Canada is we don't have any good scandals. We're not like the UK where you had Boris Johnson partying during COVID. You don't have a convicted felon running for office. We don't have any of that stuff. Why do we watch the American news? Because it's a soap opera. It's magnificent. It has no meaning. I mean, did you know in the States that there is not in the Constitution the right to vote? So this whole thing becomes somewhat of a silliness anyway. But you've got this going on, name calling, cat ladies, That's why it's entertaining. It's like the OJ trial. Bring it on, I say, because in Canada, we're bloody boring.
Well, our show, this is our little show that goes half an hour a day, and we talk mostly about politics, economics, money, technology, and wars in the Middle East and Ukraine. That's about it. Why? Because in half an hour a day, knowing what people that I've surveyed want to know, that's about it. That's from feedback. And it seems that that's what Canadians are anxious for. But you asked a question when we were discussing what our topics were going to be, and I'm going to ask you the question back. How many people out there have lost friends over an Americanism, which is the Trump debate? How many Canadians have lost friends arguing with other Canadians?
Oh my God. I'm surprised. And some of the people are quite high profile. And I'll be venturing along, and I have all the subtlety of a bull in a china shop, right?
I've noticed that.
Thank you. So I'm looking at this, and I'm talking to people, and suddenly I'll sense somebody who I regard highly. They're an icon in business. They will bring up the opinion of Trump. And of course, I presume that they're way too intelligent, okay, to support Trump. But I'm wrong. And then they start getting up and getting in my face. But here's the bit I really friggin' hate. And I mean hate, and I use that word very, very rarely, is they then start quoting Fox or Trump. Somebody the other day said to me, Camilla is stupid. That was my brain falling out. Camilla is stupid. She's an idiot. And I'm thinking she can be a lot of things, but she's not an idiot.
You mean Kamala?
Kamala. What did I call her?
Yeah. Well, because Camilla is the queen consort or whatever. Kamala is the wannabe president.
The future president. So
Right.
you better be nice
Okay,
to
if
her.
you say so. Okay.
Well, I don't think there's any joke. I mean, that story's told. But I don't want to hang out with them. I don't know how to tell them. If your moral value is supporting somebody who had sex with a porn star while his wife was pregnant, don't believe in a woman's right to a body, I could go on, is a convicted felon. I have now a moral problem with you, not a political problem. I have a friggin' moral problem with you.
But that's the whole issue, isn't it? You have a moral problem, but you don't have a political problem. And I'm not going to get into this push and shove with you because I've said publicly, I'm pro-Trump. I think he's as crazy as you do. However, I think that the United States at this point needs somebody who has leadership qualities, and whatever else he may have, he has proven leadership qualities.
Oh, come on, Peter.
That's the debate that people have. I don't want to have it now. We'll do it another time. But that's the debate that people have.
Can I do something really unprofessional right now?
What do you mean?
I'm going to plug my computer in because you tell people when you produce shows like me, always make sure your computer is plugged in. And guess what I didn't do?
Oh, so if I'm not looking at your shirt up close right now, along with the rest of our viewers, I would lose you because the power plug would fall out.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can end the Trump debate right there because obviously we know where we stand.
You said you wanted to do things live.
In here. No, I want to get some other topics in here. What's the most? This is a complete switch. There's a whole discussion going on in the Toronto area today about something that's called blocking the box, which is going into the middle of an intersection when it's already full, and so your car is now stuck in the middle while somebody else has a green light. Don't want to go there yet. What's the most annoying habit people have when you're driving, Andy? And you've driven everywhere.
You know, I consider you a good friend, but today you are putting me in the position of becoming an angry old man who should be shouting.
You are. So am I.
What's the most annoying thing driving in Canada? Worst drivers in the world.
For me, the Weavers. Okay, I'm driving in the center lane of 401 at speed or 10 clicks better than speed, which is usually the speed of the road. And Charlie over here on my right decides he wants to go faster. He's in the right-hand lane. He comes in right in front of my car, goes into the left-hand lane, and then back to the right-hand lane in front of the guy in front of me. And I say to myself, this is completely dangerous driving, and why is anybody doing it? And what I'm screaming in my closed car is, you know what I'm screaming? 2 words that aren't happy birthday. But that's my least favorite driver.
Okay, let me ask you a question, right? Let's pretend you and I become co-prime ministers and start a
God help Canada, but go ahead.
And we can take Baffin Island or somewhere. I don't really know where it is. I know it's part of Canada. And we can put certain people on that island who annoy us. My choice, one of my choices, because I have many, because I think about this a lot, actually, is people who drive around in cars with these great big bass bins and sit next to me at traffic like boom, 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 boom. I don't care. I don't want to share your music. And if you really want to piss them off, I wind the window down and they wind it down. I look at them and go, I said, I think one of your speakers is cracked. Okay, what's your thing?
I can hear it vibrating.
Okay,
well.
They go on our island. Who are you going to put on that island? What?
Who am I going to put on that island because they're objectionable?
Yes.
No, I don't hate anybody. I don't hate anybody that much. I really don't.
No,
I either look at it's simple, and this is the God's honest truth. I either like you or I'm indifferent to you. I gave up hating a long time ago. I didn't get into my 70s and keep my health by spending energy, wasting energy hating people.
Irritates then.
Who irritates me? I can't tell you. I mean, you irritate me, but I like you.
Yeah, but okay, I'm driving down the road. I drive down the road and don't do public transport because I'm a self-absorbed, spoilt person. I do not want to interface with grubby people on public transport, okay? So when I'm sitting there in my luxury automobile that I have earned, and I come up behind a bunch of people, and I have these little icons on the back of their family. You know, little Johnny and maybe R2-D2 or
How about the sticker that says baby on board?
No, I'm okay with that one, though we can discuss that
Okay.
in a second. And all these little icons, right? I don't want to know. You have now taken your family, injected them into my luxury automobile and my private little world. The very reason I'm in there is I don't want to know about you or your family.
So you're not going to give me a name of somebody you want to put on Baffin Island or wherever we're going.
Oh, I could
You're
come
just
up with
telling
lots of
me a
people.
type. You're telling me a type. And I would happen to agree with you on some level, because there are people who interfere with your life, and they want to interfere with your life, and those people can go to Baffin Island. Andy, I've got to go, not to Baffin Island, but we're already through 15 minutes, and I've got a rest of the show to do that's going to take 25. Take care in Costa Rica, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Ciao. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You're with the Sherman Report. Daily news commentary live at 5 p.m. Video version live at X, YouTube, and Facebook. Here's Peter Sherman.
All right, for anyone who cares about how our country is being managed and what the future holds, the curtain opened this morning with NDP leader Jagmeet Singh announcing that he is done with the so-called supply and confidence agreement he and Trudeau had. He tore it up and put out a 90-second explanation for Canadians in which he calls Justin Trudeau weak and incapable of winning any forthcoming election. In fact, it's a commercial for the NDP, really. He takes a gigantic swipe at Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who he says, as NDPers always do, the Conservatives are only there to serve the rich and don't care about everyday Canadians, but he does. Take a look at the video, and you can watch and listen for yourself.
Today, I notified the Prime Minister that I've ripped up the supply and confidence agreement. Canadians are fighting a battle for the future of the middle class. Justin Trudeau has proven again and again he will always cave to corporate greed. The Liberals have let people down. They don't deserve another chance. There is an even bigger battle ahead. The threat of Pierre Poilievre and Conservative cuts from workers, from retirees, from young people, from patients, from families. He will cut in order to give more to big corporations and wealthy CEOs. The fact is, the Liberals are too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests to fight for people. They cannot be the change. They cannot restore the hope. They cannot stop the Conservatives. But we can. In the next federal election, Canadians will choose between Pierre Poilievre's callous cuts or hope. Hope that when we stand united, we win. That Canada's middle class will once again thrive together. In Canada, we take care of our neighbors. That's who we are. I've embraced that value my whole life. I'm running for Prime Minister because together we can and will stop Conservative cuts. We can deliver relief and restore hope. Fix healthcare, build homes you can afford, stop price gouging. It's always impossible until it isn't. It can't be done until someone does it. If we're together, nothing is impossible. And we won't let them tell us it can't be done. Big corporations and wealthy CEOs have had their government. It's the people's time.
So there's your commercial. And that agreement that he referred to kept Trudeau alive for 2.5 years, approximately, of minority government. And Singh, as you heard, called the Liberals not only weak, but selfish. Singh can't evoke an election on his own schedule, but he can force a vote of non-confidence, which he says will be on the table at any time. That's a quote from him. With every confidence measure that comes along, and if a non-confidence motion passes, of course, it forces the government to fall and an election then ensues. Now, the way things stand, the latest an election can happen, confidence motion or not, would be October of 2025. I suspect it'll happen sooner than that, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happened before the end of 2024, but you never know. Singh says his party's leadership circle began to reevaluate the agreement with the Liberals last month after Trudeau imposed binding arbitration to keep the railways from going on strike. Stopping strikes is never the choice of anybody in the socialist realm, the NDP, which presents a highly pro-labor image. Trudeau, meanwhile, told reporters that he thinks he can make Parliament work and will focus on delivering for Canadians. And I say, wow, Justin, when do you start? Anyway, here's the quote: "I'll let others focus on politics," adding he hoped the next election will not happen until next fall, so that his government has time to move forward on its agenda. So it'll be a lot of politicking from here on in. We'll be on it here on the Sherman Report, so stick with us. I'm not like the TV news guys. I tell you the news, and then I tell you what I think of the news. And what I think of this news is that our Prime Minister, at some point in 2025, or possibly sooner, may just have double initials. We'll be right back.
You're with the Sherman Report. Daily news commentary available at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, with video posted on YouTube and Facebook. Here's Peter Sherman.
You may know that the country of Brazil has taken X, formerly known as Twitter, down in its country. It's not available in Brazil. How do you do that? Well, you make distributors, in this case, the Brazilian equivalents, I don't know who they are, of Rogers or Bell, and you make them block it. And you legislate its use. For example, if users decided to buy their internet service from Elon Musk's Starlink, which is satellite to home or business, and Elon also happens to own X, then you make yourself disappear by using a VPN or virtual private network, as I do, along with many of you. The fine in Brazil for violation will be $8,900 US. $8,900 US if you are caught on Twitter or X. However, Brazil has now lost X on Starlink because Musk's business in Brazil on Starlink is obviously more important to him than the loss of X users there or government alienation there. So I don't want to make this complicated. And why am I talking about Brazil anyway? There are implications here in Canada and in the United States as well as most every other country on earth. It's about the level of power that any online operation can exercise in the area of free speech. We have the Online Harms Act now in Canada, which establishes a digital safety commission to administer a framework that endeavors to create and control online safety. If you didn't understand that, join the club. That's how they make laws, and that's how they explain them. Anyway, it is a way of tightening the internet and what's on it in Canada. As of now, it has not restricted X or any other social media, but Part 2 of this law would change the criminal code to create a new peace bond, which would help prevent and deter hate crimes and hate propaganda offenses from being committed, and increase the maximum punishments for hate propaganda offenses, and even create a new general hate crime offense. Okay, if that's not enough, here's Part 3. The bill would amend the Canadian Human Rights Act to complement the regulation of social media services, their social media services, by allowing recourse for anyone to the Canadian Human Rights Commission against individual users who post what you think is hate speech on those services or anywhere online. So the big news today is also this, and this is why I wanted to talk about Brazil. Kamala Harris is out there saying in an interview that she supports what Brazil did because she feels the big social media companies, and notably Elon Musk and X, have too much power.
He has lost his privileges, and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
Okay, so can American intervention be far behind if she were to win the election, as Andy said she would? you got to remember something. The United States has absolute freedom of speech. It's quite different than what we in Canada have. Absolute freedom of speech and freedom of the press. They're both covered by the First Amendment in their Constitution. And there would be a lawsuit before you could blink your eyes if she tries to turn these guys off. Such a legal maneuver would, if required, go all the way to what? A Trump-appointed Supreme Court. What do you think the outcome would be of that? Look, I can see why governments don't like the power of the internet and certainly don't like the power of something like X, because basically the way it sits, anybody can say anything they want. The web is absolutely worldwide. Remember, they called it the World Wide Web, and therefore it is huge. It can, in a sense, move mountains. Governments want that power, but they don't want it to be in your hands. This very show, the one you're watching now that I do every day, is a small but demonstrable piece of someone, me, using social media to put out the thoughts of people who are our guests and largely my own beliefs and feelings interspersed with the news. I do that, however, while always being open to hearing the thoughts of others. Now, I will say this. I believe the power of social media is quite incredible. And that kind of power can have devastating results. Circulation of child porn, online bullying of teens, which cause suicide. We know about that. There are other things as well, but those are just two examples. But if those illegitimate uses could be curtailed, punished, free speech is either absolute or it is not absolute. In the United States, it has always been absolute. The First Amendment allows you to do certain things. For example, you can take your life in your hands if you want. Put a stepladder on the grass somewhere in Central Park in New York City. Pull out your little portable bullhorn and start shouting racial epithets that would get you arrested here. They might get you killed in Central Park, but not by law enforcement. You're allowed to do it. Here, police would arrest you for hate speech, maybe, because this is a Canadian restriction contained in our laws, contained in our charter on individual speech. I would hate to see free speech curtailed here on social media, but I do understand why many disagree with that stance. This is going to be an interesting one to watch. I'll be right back with you.
You're with the Sherman Report. Daily news commentary available at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, with video posted on YouTube and Facebook. Here's Peter Sherman.
People in the aviation industry are saying the pending Air Canada strike will happen on or about September 17th, which is the strike deadline. 98% of pilots have voted. They give basically a 98% approval of a strike if a financial solution is not reached by their bargaining unit. And we're talking about 5,400 pilots here. And that's a lot of canceled flights. Now, I'm not an aviation expert. I'm not a labor expert. I'm a commentator who reads and absorbs a lot, and I've covered a lot of these things. I'm not seeing the government making any noise about this, and people who have the expertise suggest that Ottawa and Trudeau, particularly today, but in any event, is prepared to let a strike happen with Air Canada and just stand back. Why? Because apparently there's sufficient capacity on various Canadian airlines to handle passenger load without Air Canada. And besides, why upset Jagmeet Singh, right, Justin? Anyway, I digress. In terms of seat numbers, I can't argue that particular point. The experts know better than I, but Air Canada's competitors don't do a lot of the overseas flying, for example, that Air Canada does. Take Porter as an example. They go to the United States. They have very high volume to places like Ottawa and Montreal. How many flights does it handle, for example, to London and Paris? So you know the number. Let me make one thing very clear. There's nowhere that would need to be considered off limits if you needed or wanted to travel. So you can do it, and I'll tell you how. I've said before that I once lived in Niagara for a number of years and had only a 35 to 40-minute drive to Buffalo International Airport, which was easier to use for me and in any event than Pearson. Much less taxi time for the aircraft. They pull out of the gate and in 3 minutes you're in the air. Parking for your car costing about 25%, maybe 30% of what Pearson charges you. So if Air Canada does stop flying, consider driving 90 minutes and getting on a Buffalo flight to a major center like New York or Newark or Atlanta or Chicago and hop anywhere you want from one of those centers to anywhere in the world. So yes, we can get along without Air Canada, but we'll have to get along with some inconvenience at the same time. All right. I have one more thing I want to mention, and I won't play a breaker between this and that. I'll just tell you this. This morning I was scrolling through tweets on X, which formerly, I have to say this for a while, formerly known as Twitter, and our finance minister for the moment is Chrystia Freeland, who was touting a recent budget measure, picking up the tab for free lunches for 400,000 Canadian school kids. Please understand that I begrudge no child when it comes to eating for health and for growth. But I've asked this question before here and elsewhere, and I'll ask it again. What did the 400,000 kids eat last year and the year before that when there was no supplement for them? Obviously something, yes. I am not in denial. I know there are hungry kids and hungry parents in this socialist heaven we call Canada. I asked the question about what they ate before in a rhetorical way. But the truth is that their parents, for the most part, could buy the makings for their kids' lunches more readily and more easily. Why not now? Because they go to the gas pumps and they have to pay an expensive carbon tax. And yeah, I know we all get the refund checks every few months, but have you calculated whether it's a quid pro quo? Or can you? Of course you haven't done it because you can't do it. The carbon tax is embedded in your food prices. It's embedded in the car sticker price. It's embedded in basically everything you buy because transportation is part of the price that you have to pay for all those things that you buy to get to the place where you buy them, not just for your own gas station visits. Then there's the gas itself, which continues to carry a big price tag for a commodity, barrels of oil, that have largely remained in the $60 to $80 range for the past 10 plus years, excluding during COVID when we weren't driving much. There's federal tax built into into gas at the pump already. Federal tax. In the province of Ontario, don't know about the other provinces, that provincial tax has been taken out for the last couple of years to help. The current government in Ottawa is also taxing you even more heavily without admitting it's even called a tax. That's by having significantly inflated the money supply, printing money in simple terms. The tax, and I call it a hidden tax, is built into your dozen eggs, costing, $6, $7 now, to your butter at $7 to $9. And those are staples. Everybody has to have them. I think Prime Minister Trudeau is giving that a lot of thought these days, more so since this morning, as he tries to spin the information in a positive way. He was going to have a deal or have to deal with an election sometime in the next year anyway. With today's news, could come a lot sooner. That's it for today, everybody. Come find us every evening when we're live at 5 o'clock on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and YouTube, or check out my website, petersherman.com. That's Sherman with a U. Any comments or voicemails are welcome there too. Have a good night, everybody.
The Sherman Report, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the video version at YouTube, Facebook, and always at petersherman.com. Thanks for listening to The Sherman Report. If you'd like to connect with Peter directly, just go to petersherman.com.